What I'm reviewing today is The Shadow of What Was Lost, which is book one of the Licanius trilogy by James Islington. And this book was his debut novel, which is freaking insane to me. This may be the best debut novel I have ever read. Man, this was really, really good. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. And we are in the spoiler-free section, so don't be worried about any spoilers right now. But definitely recommend checking out this book. I'll get into what I like and didn't like here in just a second. But I wanted to go through the premise of the story just so you have some background on what the story is about. So basically this is a high fantasy kind of world, or epic fantasy, whatever you want to say. But this is a time where the people who can use magic are not celebrated or ruling or running things from behind or anything like that. They, 20 years ago, were overthrown by just regular folks like you and me. And now they are basically put under these tenets that basically restrict them from how they can use magic in certain ways. So they can't harm a non-gifted person, or they have to do whatever an administrator says. So basically they're in a situation where they used to run everything for thousands of years. The gifted were actually servants of these people called augurs who could see the future, and they had other powers too, like they could do time manipulation. Basically what happened was the augurs started getting things wrong, the visions started getting wrong. That broke the trust between the regular people and the augurs, and they're like, why are you basically running things if you're not even getting your visions right anymore? What is the point of even having you? And so they basically slew all the augurs, destroyed like all the gifted schools except for 2 of them. All the gifted, like I said, had to be put under all these tenets. The boundary in the north that keeps out all the evil stuff that's been there for like thousands of years is weakening. And Davian is going to have to embrace his powers to help fight off this boundary. There's a lot more going on than that, but that is basically the as spoiler-free version as I can get. So what I liked about this book, there's 4 things: the plot, the world building, the pacing, and just the cinematic nature of this book. The plot itself is a little derivative, but it's the way that Islington subverts things and twists things. When I did my October TBR video and I saw the word shadow in this title and I saw Wheel of Time in the blurb, I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be awesome. And I really wanted him to play up the shadow factor, which in Wheel of Time is basically you don't know who to trust at any time. Well, in this book, he really plays on that. Like, that's one of the main things that I liked about this book, was you didn't know who to trust at any time. You were constantly on your toes. I was like gripping the book in a vice at times, because I'm just so scared that somebody I really like is going to end up being a bad person. There's some people that are gray characters, and it's just like shades of gray. Like, some are you're pretty sure they're good, but they've done some bad things, and then there's some people who you're not sure what their motives are. Are they doing what they're doing for this person for the right reasons, or is it a selfish thing? Still really don't know on all the people, but a lot of those questions do get answered. And that was when I talk about the pacing. It's the answering of questions in a consistent manner that makes the pacing of this book really good. Islington is really good at asking the questions, but he's just as good at making sure he's doling out these answers in a way that you feel like you're progressing through the book. You build trust with the author that if I keep going, I'm going to get more answers and more questions, but that it's just going to be a nice give and take. The other part that made the pacing really good is that most times, I'd say like 90% of the time, each chapter felt like its own nice contained little short story. Even though the chapters each are only like 10 to 12 pages long, each had like their rising action, climax, and then falling action, or cliffhanger, or whatever. But they all felt really nice and like really neat. You could tell like a lot of work got put into this book, like really honing it down. There's no fat in this book. It's just boom, 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 like very lean. Like, this is only 670 pages or something like that. I read it in like 4 days, I think, of actual reading time. But this could have easily been 1,000 pages. If this was Brandon Sanderson, and I love Brandon, but this would have been a 1,000 to 1,100 page book. And, you know, you can argue whether it would have been better or not, but I really liked how lean it was. Just let me blow through it. So this reads a lot more like a thriller than any other epic fantasy novel that I've probably read recently. The next thing was the world building. The world building is very derivative. You can definitely see influences of Wheel of Time in the naming of things, and also how the magic feels kind of similar, how people who use magic are seen as this lesser thing, kind of like the male channelers in Wheel of Time. But it does have its own twist on things, and it had enough of them to where it felt interesting. And then a lot of the way that magic works, there's time travel, which don't get scared by that, at least not right now, from book one. The way that works, just some really cool conversations around predestination, which may be like a first college psychology class level conversation, but for me, I enjoyed it. Just nice little thought-provoking, just stuck in there about, what is fate? Do we actually get to make our own choices and things like that? The last thing was the cinematic nature. So this book reads like a movie or a TV show to me. The action that's written and the magic when it's used is really captivating and really evocative. Blow by blow, you feel like you are in the scene. I mean, like I said, I was gripping the book and I was like, yes. Like, I feel like I was punching and like stabbing. So really love that aspect. So let's get on to what I did not like about this book. The main thing I didn't like about this book was that the characters were a little flat. They didn't have a lot of their own personalities. So they're just vanilla. Like, it was like every single character was Harry from Harry Potter. Like, fine, but just fine. Like, there's nothing that makes them unique or differentiates them from anyone around them. So you get like they're feeling sad about this, or they feel angry, or they're motivated because of this, but you don't really get what makes them tick as an individual person. Like I said, this book doesn't have a lot of fat, but I think it could have spent a little bit more time really fleshing and rounding out these characters to make them more interesting on an individual basis. And the other thing with the characters is a lot of times the character conflict that there was like over women. Like, we couldn't have found another way to make the male characters clash than it be over who's looking at this girl. I thought that just a lot of the character things were just little like first time author type things that hopefully he kind of gets better at going forward. That's the main thing I didn't like. So I gave this book 4 stars on Goodreads. If you like epic fantasy, if you like Wheel of Time and Brandon Sanderson, know that you're not going to get the exact same thing by any means. It's uniquely its own thing. But I definitely recommend it as a page turner, thrill ride. Definitely worth reading, definitely worth checking out. Sorry, I smacked my mic. It's definitely worth reading, definitely worth checking out. And now I'm just going to go into the spoiler section of the review. I did want to touch on some key things that I was either interested in or had questions on or really liked. And I don't even want anybody to answer those questions. This is just kind of where I'm at after book 1 and kind of things I'm thinking about. I'm very confident, like I feel like it's 100% true that Malshash from Delanis is actually Talcamar, which I said earlier, if you like Wheel of Time, you'll like this. One of the things is the whole names thing where everybody has like 4 different names. That's very Wheel of Time. Like, I was trying to keep track of who everybody was, but I'm pretty sure Malshash is because the vision of the woman that he marries is the same vision that Talcamar or Caden has. The ability to shapeshift, stolen from the Ath. I think that both of them mentioned that and did it. So I feel really confident that they're the same person. I'm trying to still work my head around the implications of that because Davian obviously somehow left the ring back in 90 or 70 years ago or something, and somehow Talcamar got back there in Delanis, but then Davian had to come in the current to get trained by Talcamar to go back for this story, I guess, so he would be able to make sure that things happen the way they needed to. I don't know. I'm so confused. I don't know how all that's going to play out. I'm sure it'll all be explained going forward, but that's one mystery that I feel like it's not even like a mystery. It's just like the mechanics of like when and how and why. But the twist I really want to talk about, this one really kind of got me. Like, I kind of saw it coming, but I didn't see it coming in the way that it is. So what it is it's Elosian. I knew something was off with him because he was acting too chummy with the augurs. Like, he's a duke who's like, we're going to say in his mid 40s or 50s. And he previously hated the gifted and the augurs. He's the one that like wrote the tenets. Now, I get that his son was gifted and that supposedly changed him. Now he's acting like he's like a 20-year-old, like, hey, fellow kids, like chilling and just talking to him like an equal. Really, it was throwing me off. Like, it was just so subtle the way Islington wrote it. But I knew, I was like, he wouldn't be acting like this even if he had a change of heart. He would still be formal, like working with him on a professional basis, but wouldn't really be happy about it. He's just like, hey guys. So I knew that something was wrong, and what I thought, my theory was, because the king was acting so erratically, I thought that the king and the duke body swapped or something. Like, because the king was nice to the gifted, or nicer, and Elosian was the bad one, but then the king starts, railing against him and stuff, and Elosian's being all nice to him. So I was like, I don't know, maybe they like body swapped. They don't realize that they did. I had no idea. So Asha's like, hey, she realizes something in the middle of the battle, and she runs off to go do something, and she goes in, and Aaron is on the floor like bleeding, and the Elosian had just died. And I started to get the feeling like, yeah, he had said, like, even if I get confused, do this. And I thought it was really odd in the book. He was like, immediately got confused. And I was like, this is written really badly. But then I was like, okay, let me see where this is going. And the reason why he got confused is because that wasn't confused. That was actually him. And he's like, where am I? Because he hadn't really been there. He was shut out of his own mind. And it made sense because Aaron is younger, that when he's impersonating the dupe or controlling what he's saying, that he wouldn't make him as formal. That was kind of like a little clue. So I kind of got the clue, but I didn't really get to the conclusion. So that one definitely got me. I knew something was up, and I just had the wrong theory as to what was going on. So I really liked that one. And it also has a lot of emotional implications because, just the fact that he's killing all these people, if ever finds that out, or Torin, that would definitely hurt him a lot. So, that was pretty emotional, just knowing that his dad is actually a terrible person that has been torturing these augurs. I don't blame Aaron at all for doing what he did. Man, that was a good one. The other thing that I really liked about this book, and it took all the way to the epilogue to really start caring about Caden and Talcamar, him getting his memory back of how he stole Caden's face, basically. It kind of reminds me of the Assassin in White from Stormlight, where it's like he's killing, but he's sad about it. Just that he knew that he had to. Like, it's like practical, like, this has to happen, but I don't want to do it. And then on top of that, the reveal that he's actually Arkine Deved. He's the bad guy. I went back and reread the prologue, and so he's not the big bad guy. There's some other master that he was serving. But then I'm thinking back to the journal or book that Davian read, that the advisor pointed him to when he asked for information about Arkine Deved. Talked about the king who ruled for all these years and did the 3 tasks and failed all of them. And there was whoever that person was that was setting him these tasks. I'm wondering, is that the Shadow Master? And the king, whatever his name was, is actually Talcamar? I don't know. Don't answer these questions. If you know the answers, don't answer. This is kind of my thoughts and my confusion. But I didn't really like any of the characters individually. I will say my 2 favorite characters in this story were Asha and Terrace Sar. I liked Asha more by default because I thought that all the other young main characters were just really boring. I feel like Talcamar going forward will be really interesting. So Asha, she had the most personality, but still didn't really have much of one. She was really resolute, she was brave, she was smart, she was courageous, she was clever, she was resourceful, all those things, nice. But it was like, what was her personality? What made her tick? What really set her apart from anybody else? Not a whole lot, but more than, she liked to draw. Like, I'm really grasping at straws here. But all the other ones were more like Harry, where it's like, I'm just being pulled along this journey, and these things are impacting me, and I'm either like, I feel a way about it, but what makes me me? So they're all really vanilla and bland. So that was a failing of the book to me. Terrace Sar, though, I really liked him in just that his motivations are so unclear. He was so good at motivating people, and he really reminds me of, everybody right now reminds me of Butcher from The Boys, because I'm watching it right now. But just his grittiness, like if you had Butcher, like scarred up hair, a little more weathered, to me, like longer hair, that'd be like Terrace Sar. Like, he's keeping everybody on the same page, keeping them focused. He's like a bit of a badass, but I just really liked his vibe. He had that, like, he was that Gandalf or that Moraine. Like, he's the person that you feel safe when the characters are with him. Even though I know that there's some uncertainty as to did he cause that attack on Davian or not. But the fact that he's been living, basically cutting up his own face and having to keep himself from killing himself because of his link to Davian from that night. And he hasn't asked him to stop it because it's more important for him to be able to find him, hopefully for good reasons. Like, that's pretty cool. So I really liked him. So that's basically kind of my thoughts on this whole thing. Like, I have a lot of questions, but I enjoyed a lot of the twists and thought that they were earned. I thought that they were foreshadowed well, while also that he gave you clues to like set you off like something's not right here. Anyways, I'm gonna shut the video off because I'm just rambling. So I really enjoyed this book. I'm really happy I read it, and I can't wait to hopefully get to book 2 sometime at the beginning of next year. So thanks for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Peace.